So good morning, folks. My name is Melissa King. I'm the Water Programs Coordinator here with the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources. And just a couple of quick intros about who we are and the partners that we work with. Our primary goal is to protect and improve soil and water resources across our great state. And we do that largely in partnership with local government units and other partners across our state. We are guided by a 20-member appointed board and an executive director. And I'll move to the next slide. And currently we have just about 120 staff spread across 9 offices in our state. We have had a number of kind of travel restrictions in place that have gradually been lessening, and different approval processes to work outside of our home office or our assigned office location. And most of that largely lifted earlier this spring. And I will say probably the majority of our staff are still and have opted to work from home or go into the office just kind of on as needed basis. For us, our partners and our clientele, we work really with a whole suite of folks in our state. We have 88 soil and water conservation districts, 8 kind of joint powers organizations of technical service, SWCD technical service areas, counties. We have watershed districts, kind of in greater Minnesota, and a number of watershed districts and watershed management organizations specifically within our 7-county Twin Cities metropolitan area. We have many municipalities across the state, a growing number of watershed management partnerships, and kind of working on our relations and relationships and partnerships with tribal nations across our state, as well as a number of regional partnerships, state and federal agencies, and nonprofit partners. So kind of a wide list of clientele that our staff work with. And I will say pre-pandemic, in-person meetings and get-togethers were our MO. We did have some accessibility with Skype for Business on an internal use that we would probably largely just use it for instant messaging. Occasionally we would have some interfaces like WebEx that we would pull out for some kind of larger standing training events that we would put on. Their SharePoint, we have kind of the same Microsoft 365 suite, but a lot of, I would say, the tools and accessibility, maybe only a few staff were really taking advantage of. And with WebEx and things like SurveyMonkey, really just we maybe had one paid license that we would share amongst our staff if we really needed to use that, but probably largely relying on the in-person interactions that we would have. Worth mentioning too, we have our own grant management system. We're granting, at least in our fiscal year 2022, roughly $60 million through 1,000+ grants. So you stack that on top of each other across multiple fiscal years. It can be a lot, and it's a nice tool that we've had and is undergoing some development now. Right before the pandemic, our state enterprise took away kind of the Skype for Business and replaced that with Microsoft Teams. And really the functionality for that was pretty basic when it rolled out, and across the course of the pandemic, the tools available within Teams to us, how we utilize Teams internally or with our interagency partners, has really ramped up. And this is just a screenshot of a SharePoint site that our state IT department has. They are really on the ball with coordinating trainings on how to use new features in Teams, or things that maybe weren't there, like doing breakout sessions or talking about how to make polls and whiteboards within Teams itself. So, and I would say some of this has been really recent, within maybe the last year, of just really amping this up. But when Teams rolled out, we were kind of maybe a little ahead of the game compared to some of our other partners where we had some technology available to us. And so we were maybe coordinating meetings on behalf of some of our partners to get folks together. And Teams is really great for interagency and our internal work. It's not so great and easy sometimes to add external partners. say onto team work groups, or other things. Data retention practices and policies, I would say, have really evolved since this first rolled out, um, with the types of information that we're able to share and store within teams, kind of versus public, non-public data, and just how long, say, like chats get stored, has kind of has kind of restrictions on things have been amped up. WebEx, that's sorry, folks. WebEx kind of became our go-to for us. A lot of our committee meetings, our board meetings were hosted in person, at various places across the state. Even unless you were out of our St. Paul primary office, you would have to travel to that office if you wanted to participate in. Even for our local government partners, meetings, just public meetings, became more accessible for the public and for staff in general to attend to. And for us, we're still maintaining that hybrid meeting today for a lot of our committee structures. WebEx has been used for like a lot of our broader staff training. I think we've increased the number of paid licenses by a couple because we're amping up and rolling out like a suite of recorded trainings and resources for our government partners to be more accessible, where maybe we would have recorded a training and posted that recording of the in-person training, for a limited time. And I would say what we found is we're kind of transitioning back to more staff in the field. More of our partners are meeting in person. It's a lot of travel time, for our staff to go about the state, and weighing, if there's an ability to do a hybrid meeting that's more effective, that maybe isn't, kind of the standing public meeting required to adhere to open meeting law requirements, of really utilizing the tools that we have to try to have that hybrid approach. But as some of our previous presenters have talked about, your calendar fills up really quickly. And just kind of some general tips and best practices that we found, I think, to be helpful is, where you're not having kind of those informal staff conversations where you call somebody up, but you want to have a meeting. And if you're having a meeting for more than an hour in length, really have a clear meeting purpose. Like, I think people are cognizant of each other's times, and have clear purposes for having a meeting to get to decision points and an agenda. And if you're really having those longer meetings, and I think we've gotten better about this over the course of the pandemic, build some break time in, especially if you're doing stuff over the course of an hour, or we may have, a multiple hour meetings, or you have back to back multiple hour meetings. You're just cognizant of taking 5 to 15 minutes to just, take a break from your computer and stretch your legs. In it, like everyone else, internet accessibility and mine has dropped out a couple of times here this morning. When you can have cameras on, or have cameras on at really key points, it's kind of nice to see faces, amidst the black boxes when you log into stuff. So intros, encouraging people to put cameras on, and you'd be amazed, I think, when one or two people start turning on, then folks will turn them on and pop off and on throughout the course of the meeting. We have been, I would say, better about building interaction touch points. It's really easy, right, to just run through a PowerPoint or sit and feel like you're talking at people for a long period of time, to build in touch points for interactions throughout, particularly if you're doing something, a training or something with a larger group, of folks, using icebreaker questions. I think our staff are really great about finding free things available to us on the internet. There's a lot of trivia type games like Jeopardy or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, something that's a little more fun. Um, Works well. You have to put a little effort into it on the front end, but you can take that up, across the course of your chat using annotation tools. Maybe that's more appropriate for WebEx, or platforms like WebEx, where you can have participants be, having touch points on slides where they're, say, filling out a question, or providing some input on something. Breakout rooms, we've used them more and more, and I would say that works well when you're in larger groups, to really help stimulate the discussion. I don't know, people get shy, it seems, when you're in the larger groups, to want to put yourself out there to have some really robust discussion. So if you can break that down to smaller groups where you have facilitators identified ahead of time, or try to avoid that awkward silence when you're asking for volunteers to facilitate a breakout. We found that using maybe an ambiguous question of who's got the most pets or who has the most unique pets, you're going to be a facilitator or a meeting recorder to report back to the group, is kind of maybe help eliminate some of those awkward silences that you could get when you're asking for that. For us, like I said, Teams, the functionality and tools within Teams has been growing, that we can do meeting polling more easily, where maybe we were doing that with Menti or something else on the internet easily. Digital whiteboards have been, I think, really awesome, and there is some prep that you need to do ahead of time to kind of set it up or set your questions up. Jamboard is a good free one that we've been using. Mural is another access on there where your participants don't need to create another login and track those credentials. And Mural is a good one if you're talking about sensitive topics and people want to be anonymous with input that they're putting on, to help do that. And you can capture a lot of that at the end. And really, you've all probably learned, but when you're presenting on the screen, get some help with someone else that can help monitor the chat, the raised hands, participants coming in and off, the unintended coming off the mute and your dog barking, or the recycling truck driving by always seems to happen. So you can help keep that in check. And really, in those large groups, having a good facilitator is pretty key to keep things on track and conversations on topic. You can be in some of those meetings where you're talking about something that is contentious on a hybrid state. So just being able to direct to, if you have someone that's coming in and trying to derail that conversation or take it off topic for too long of a period of time. And in the hybrid approach, it's sometimes you can forget about the people that are joining virtually. So think about how you get their interactions if you have folks also in person that are doing small group, or being considerate of folks that are on the virtual platform to have the opportunity to voice their opinions in, as well. And scheduling for us has been really interesting. I think from the internal system, we can see each other's calendars in Outlook. We can see calendars for our fellow staff and colleagues in other state agencies, but haven't found a really great way to chat about and scheduling that with our external partners. And my screen keeps slipping around, sorry folks, but that Let Us Meet and the When to Meet have been two really cool free tools available that you can really easily try to find some open meeting slots on there. Mentimeter and Slido, some of you have maybe found some of that, but like I said, the internet is a really wealth of knowledge and features that are out there to help bring some interaction into your conversations. And on these last couple of slides, it's one thing I wanted to mention, and this is accessible on the World Wide Web, for us, of at least equity, inclusion, and accessibility have been real priorities for our current administration, with a lot of efforts even pre-pandemic to start trying to advance that. And we discovered this recently of our state enterprise IT department basically has a subset statewide office of accessibility, where they have their own suite of staff, of training resources, of documents that are available to us as state employees, and really anyone from the public can go access this. On thinking about accessibility in meetings, in your PowerPoint presentations, in various documents that you're putting out, I think the good thing about the pandemic, right, is it made some of our meetings more accessible for folks to attend and to participate in, that maybe couldn't, or was more difficult pre-pandemic to have to do that. And this has been really helpful to have a suite of resources when we, as such a small agency, don't have dedicated staff that are helping us do this, to get some of that information out. So it's kind of a cool thing that's out there for everybody to take a look at. And if I can get to the next slide, the webpage is up there if anyone wants to take a peek. But I don't know, like I was telling Ray, I don't know that we're doing anything super cutting edge here in Minnesota, and probably a lot of lessons learned and adapting as we've gone along in the pandemic. but just kind of moving forward in this new virtual hybrid world. So
Well,
that's all I have for today.